What if you had to die 127 times to save the one person you love? 11:59 a.m. Loop 127. I've died in the next minute. 126 times. My name is Jake Morrison, and I'm trapped in the worst 30 minutes of my life. Every day for 4 months, I wake up outside Murphy's saloon. Every day at noon, I'm dead. Every day, I wake up to do it again. The saloon doors creak open. Thomas Scarlett steps in, hand hovering over his Colt .45. Everyone calls him Scar. He's here to kill me. Or so I thought. Morrison, he growls. I don't look up from my whiskey. Afternoon, Thomas. You know why I'm here? Yeah, I say, meeting his eyes for the first time in 127 loops. But do you? See, it took me 47 deaths to realize the truth. Thomas doesn't want to kill me. He wants me to kill him. And until I figure out why, Sarah Chen, the sweetest girl in 3 territories, keeps dying from his stray bullets. That changes today. By the end of this tale, you'll discover the shocking truth behind the time loop and whether love can truly conquer death itself. Welcome to WestDream Tales, where the Wild West lives again, not just with guns and dust, but with love, courage, and stories that refuse to die. Out on the frontier, every choice could change a life forever. What happens next would seem impossible to anyone watching. I move like a man who's lived this moment before, because I have, 126 times. Scar draws his gun, but I'm already rolling left. Behind the overturned table, I knock down in loop 53. His first shot splinters the wood exactly where my head was a half second ago. Tommy, on get down, I shout toward the bar. He's going for the whiskey bottles. Wowdy. Sure enough, Scar pivots and fires 2 rapid shots at the bottles behind the bar, trying to create chaos with flying glass. But Tommy's already ducked, warned by my impossible foresight. I vault over a chair, drawing my own Colt 45 in one fluid motion. Scar's third shot whistles past my ear. I lean right at precisely the right moment. Misses. Patterson screams and dives under her table. The sound echoes in the saloon like a banshee's wail. You can't know all my moves. Morrison's Scar snarls, backing toward the window. Left shoulder fake, then quick draw, right. I call out. You're going to shoot at the chandelier to drop it on me. His eyes widen in shock, but muscle memory makes him do exactly what I predicted. He feints left, draws right, and fires at the iron chandelier above my head. I'm already rolling toward the bar as 30 pounds of metal and chain crash where I was standing. The whole saloon erupts in chaos now. Customers scramble for exits. Chairs overturn. Someone knocks over a spittoon, sending brown liquid splattering across the floorboards. But I know every sound, every movement. In loop 15, misses. Patterson tries to crawl toward the back door and gets caught in crossfire. In loop 38, Tommy tries to help and gets his arm grazed. In loop 67, old Murphy has a heart attack from the stress. Not today. Murphy, take your heart medicine now. I bark while dodging behind the piano. Murphy, confused but trusting my urgent tone, fumbles for the small bottle in his vest pocket. Scar fires twice more, bullets thudding into the piano's wooden frame. Ivory keys tinkle discordantly as they shatter. I count his shots. 6 rounds fired, none left. He's reaching for his backup gun, a small Derringer in his boot. This is usually where I make my move. Quick shot to the chest. Scar drops. Sarah runs toward his body to help, catches the Derringer's dying shot to the heart. Loop resets. Same tragedy, different day. But today, I don't take the kill shot. Instead, I holster my gun and step into the open, hands raised. Thomas Scarlett, I say, my voice cutting through the chaos. I know about Mary. He freezes, Derringer half drawn. His face goes white beneath the weathered tan. I know she died last winter. I continue. Fever took her on Christmas Eve. I know you've been riding town to town, picking fights with gunfighters ever since. Shut up, he whispers, but his gun hand trembles. I know you're not here to kill me. Thomas, you're here to die. The saloon goes dead silent. Even the settling dust seems to pause in the afternoon light streaming through bullet holes in the walls. Scar's face crumples. She was only 8 years old. I know, I say gently. And I know you think if you die, the pain stops. He raises the derringer toward me with shaking hands. Just finish it. Morrison, please. This is the moment everything changes. Not the gunfight, the choice to lay down arms instead of taking them up. No, Thomas, I say, stepping closer despite the gun pointed at my chest. Because if you die, who's going to help the next Mary? Who's going to save the next little girl who needs a father figure? His gun wavers. Behind the bar, Sarah Chen slowly stands up, her dark eyes wide with understanding and compassion. The clock on the wall reads 11:59, 59, 58, 57. Put the gun down. Thomas, Sarah says softly. Let us help you. 45, 44, 43. I can't. Scar's voice breaks. I can't live without her. Yes, you can, I say, extending my hand. Because she'd want you to. 30, 29, 28. The derringer clatters to the floor. 15, 14, 13. For the first time in 127 loops, I hold my breath for a different reason. Not fear of dying, but hope for living. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. The clock strikes noon. No white flash. Time moves forward. But let me take you back to where this nightmare began. 3 weeks ago, when time still moved forward and I was just another drifter with blood on his hands and nowhere to call home, I rode into Redemption Town on a Tuesday. Dust covered my boots, my horse was half dead from thirst, and my stomach hadn't seen a proper meal in 4 days. The sun was merciless that afternoon, turning the desert into a shimmering hellscape of heat waves and false hope. Redemption Town looked like every other frontier settlement I'd passed through. False front buildings lined a single main street. The church steeple rose hopefully toward heaven, while the saloon promised more earthly comforts. Horses stood tied to hitching posts, tails swishing at persistent flies. What made this town different was her. Sarah Chen stood outside Murphy's saloon, sweeping dust off the wooden porch. She was maybe 22, with long black hair braided down her back and a blue dress that had seen better days, but was clean and carefully mended. When she looked up and smiled at me, something in my chest tightened. It had been a long time since anyone looked at a man like me with anything other than fear or contempt. Afternoon, stranger, she said, leaning on her broom. You look like you could use some water and shade. I tipped my hat. That I could, miss. Your saloon, my father's. Though I do most of the running these days, she gestured toward the interior. First drinks on the house for travelers? Papa's rules. Inside, the saloon was blessedly cool and dim. The smell of tobacco, leather, and old wood created an atmosphere of refuge from the harsh world outside. Murphy Chen, a weathered Chinese man with kind eyes, nodded from behind the bar. Welcome to Redemption, he said, pouring whiskey into a clean glass. What brings you through our little corner of nowhere? Just passing through, I said, settling onto a bar stool. That was my standard answer. Never stay long enough to get attached. Never give folks a reason to remember your name. But Sarah kept finding reasons to linger near my table. She'd refill my glass before it emptied, ask about the road ahead, comment on my horse's fine breeding, small talk that somehow didn't feel small when it came from her. You planning to stay the night, she asked as afternoon stretched toward evening. Wasn't planning on it. Well, she said, wiping down a table that was already clean. Mrs. Patterson runs a decent boarding house. Clean beds. Home cooking. Better than sleeping under stars with the coyotes. I found myself nodding. Might consider it. That was my first mistake. Getting comfortable. Letting my guard down. Starting to imagine what it might be like to have a place to belong. The next 2 weeks passed like a dream. I took odd jobs around town, fixing fences, loading supply wagons, helping with the harvest from Chen's small garden behind the saloon. Simple, honest work that felt foreign to hands more accustomed to gun leather than hammer handles. Sarah and I talked, really talked. She told me about growing up between two worlds, her father's Chinese heritage and her late mother's Irish stubbornness. I told her carefully edited versions of my travels, leaving out the darker chapters. She never pressed for details I wasn't ready to share. "You're different from other drifters," she said one evening as we sat on the saloon porch, watching the sunset paint the desert in shades of gold and crimson. How's that read? Most men passing through have restless eyes, always looking toward the horizon. But you. She paused, studying my face in the fading light. "Your eyes look tired, like you're running from something instead of running toward it." She wasn't wrong. I'd been running for 3 years, ever since Gettysburg. Ever since I came home to find carpetbaggers had stolen my family's farm and my younger sister had died of consumption in a charity ward. The war had taught me to kill, but peace had taught me to hate. "Sometimes running's all a man knows how to do," I said. "And sometimes," Sarah replied, "a man finds a reason to stop." I almost told her then, about the burned homesteads and the revenge killings, about the wanted posters with my name, about why I could never stay in one place long enough to watch the seasons change. Instead, I kissed her. It was gentle and sweet and full of impossible promises. For a moment, sitting on that porch with Sarah's hand in mine, I let myself believe I could be the kind of man who deserved something good. That was my second mistake. But the real mistake, the one that damned me to months of endless repetition, came the next morning. I was walking past the old cemetery at the edge of town when I saw her, a hunched figure in black robes, kneeling beside a weathered gravestone. At first glance, she looked like any mourner paying respects to the dead, but something about her stillness, her perfect posture despite her apparent age, made me pause. The woman turned as I approached. Her face was ancient, carved with lines that spoke of centuries rather than decades. But her eyes burned with an intelligence that seemed to look straight through me. "Jake Morrison," she said, though I'd never told her my name. "Do I know you?" "Ma'am," she smiled, revealing teeth like old ivory. "You know what you've done, child, the fires you've set, the men you've killed, the families you've destroyed in your quest for revenge." My hand moved instinctively toward my gun. "I don't know what you're talking about. The Hendricks farm, the Whitmore Ranch, the Coleman settlement." Her voice was like wind through autumn leaves. Shall I continue? Every name she spoke was a ghost from my past, places where I'd exacted bloody justice on those who'd profited from the war while good men died. "They had it coming," I said, but my voice sounded hollow even to me. Did their children, did their wives, did the field hands who lost their livelihoods when the farms burned? I had no answer for that. I'd told myself I was being careful, that I only targeted the guilty. But fire spreads. Bullets go astray. Innocent people suffered for my righteousness. "This is Maria Santos," the old woman said, gesturing to the gravestone beside her. 8 years old, died when smoke from the Hendricks fire poisoned the creek where she played. The name hit me like a physical blow. I remembered the small body they'd pulled from the water downstream. Remembered telling myself it wasn't my fault, that her death was an unfortunate accident. "You want redemption, Jake Morrison," the woman continued. "But redemption isn't something you can take. It's something you must earn." From beneath her robes, she produced a pocket watch, silver-plated, with intricate engravings that seemed to shift and dance in the morning light. "This belonged to Maria's grandfather, a good man who tried to protect his family from men like you." She held it out to me. "Take it." "I don't want—" "Take it," she repeated, and something in her voice made refusal impossible. The moment my fingers touched the metal, ice shot through my veins. Images flashed before my eyes, Maria Santos laughing as she played by the creek, then coughing blood as poison filled her lungs. The Hendricks children crying as their home burned. Widows weeping over graves. All the collateral damage from my war of vengeance. "Time," the old woman whispered, "will teach you the weight of your choices. You will live one moment of violence, again and again, until you learn that true strength lies not in taking life, but in choosing to preserve it. The world spun around me. When my vision cleared, she was gone. Only the pocket watch remained, warm against my palm and ticking with mechanical precision. I should have thrown it away. Should have ridden out of town that very moment. Instead, I put it in my vest pocket and forgot about the strange encounter until Thomas Scarlett rode into redemption 3 days later. Thomas Scarlett rode into redemption on a Friday morning, 3 weeks after my arrival. I was helping Murphy repair a broken window when the stranger dismounted outside the saloon. Tall and lean, with a black duster that had seen hard miles. The left side of his face bore a vicious scar from temple to jaw. Something cold settled in my stomach. Men like Scarlett didn't drift into towns by accident. They came hunting. Trouble, Murphy muttered, following my gaze. Could be, I agreed, but I was already planning my exit. Pack light, ride fast. Be gone before whatever storm this stranger brought could break over Redemption Town. But Scarlett wasn't interested in the town. He was interested in me. Jake Morrison, he called from the street, loud enough for half the town to hear. I know you're in there. Sarah appeared at my shoulder, her face pale with sudden understanding. Jake, go inside, I told her. Lock the doors. Who is he? I didn't answer because I was busy calculating angles and distances. Scarlett wore his gun low and loose, a professional's rig. His stance was wide and balanced. His right hand hung relaxed but ready. This wasn't some drunk cowpoke looking for a reputation. This was a killer. Morrison, Scarlett called again. Got a message from the Hendricks family. Something about their farm burning down outside Atlanta. My blood turned to ice water. The Hendricks farm, one of my darker chapters. A family of war profiteers who'd sold rotten beef to Union soldiers while my friends died of dysentery in field hospitals. I'd made sure their business burned along with their ill-gotten wealth. But I'd been careful. No witnesses, no evidence. Don't know any Hendricks, I lied, stepping out of the saloon. Scarlett smiled, a predator's expression. Funny thing about fire, Morrison, sometimes it doesn't burn everything. What followed was madness. Pure, escalating madness that taught me the true meaning of despair. Loop 10 through 20 were experiments in avoidance. I tried leaving town before Scarlett arrived. Couldn't cross the city limits. It was like hitting an invisible wall. I tried warning the sheriff. He laughed me out of his office. I tried getting drunk enough to pass out before the gunfight. Woke up sober at 11:30, same as always. Loop 21 through 40 were tactical attempts, different weapons, different positions, different strategies. I memorized Scarlett's every tell, the way his left eye twitched before drawing, how he favored his right side when wounded, which direction he'd dive when the shooting started. None of it mattered. Sarah always died. In Loop 25, I killed Scarlett clean through the heart. Perfect shot, but his dying reflex squeezed the trigger, sending a wild bullet through Sarah's chest as she rushed to help the wounded. She bled out in my arms while I screamed at a God who clearly wasn't listening. Loop 30 through 60 brought desperation. I tried absurd solutions, setting the saloon on fire before Scarlett arrived, convincing the whole town to evacuate, even attempting to tie myself up so I couldn't participate in the gunfight. The universe had a sick sense of humor. Fire or no fire, evacuation or no evacuation. Scarlett and I always ended up facing each other at high noon, and Sarah always tried to help, and Sarah always died. The worst part wasn't dying. The worst part was watching her die differently each time. Sometimes a bullet to the chest, sometimes caught in crossfire. Once, memorably horrible. She died when a ricocheting bullet brought down a chandelier that crushed her skull. I started keeping count of her deaths. Loop 45, bullet through the lung, died whispering my name. Loop 52, shot in the stomach. Took 3 agonizing minutes while I held her hand. Loop 61, neck wound. Gone instantly with a look of surprise frozen on her face. By Loop 70, I'd stopped trying to save her directly. Instead, I focused on understanding the town, the people, the intricate web of relationships that kept this moment locked in time. Old Murphy had a weak heart. Stress would kill him in loops where the gunfight dragged on too long. Mrs. Patterson was diabetic and carried sugar cubes in her reticule. Tommy Chen, Sarah's 15-year-old brother, was faster with a rifle than anyone gave him credit for. I learned that the banker, Jeremiah Watts, was embezzling money to pay gambling debts in the next territory over. That Mrs. Henderson's husband hadn't died in a mining accident. He'd run off with a dance hall girl from Silver Creek. That the preacher kept a bottle of laudanum hidden behind his Bible for the pain in his arthritis-twisted hands. Knowledge without power is its own special kind of torture. Loop 80 through 100 were my dark period. I stopped caring about collateral damage. Let Murphy have his heart attack. Saved me 30 seconds. Let Mrs. Patterson faint from shock. One less variable to worry about. I became coldly efficient at killing Scarlett in different ways, trying to find the perfect angle that would spare Sarah. Shot him in the knee to slow his draw. Sarah still died when she rushed to help him and caught a bullet from his backup gun. Shot his gun out of his hand. He drew a knife and threw it wild in desperation. It found Sarah's throat. Killed him with a headshot from across the room before he could even clear leather. The bullet went through him and shattered a mirror. Shard of silver glass opened Sarah's carotid artery. The universe seemed determined to make her pay for my sins. By loop 100, I'd given up on saving her. Instead, I started helping everyone else. Warned Murphy about his heart. Slipped Mrs. Patterson's sugar when her blood ran low. Helped Tommy become a better shot so he could defend himself. The town grew happier, safer, more prosperous with each loop, except for the 30 minutes of violence that ended each cycle. I became their guardian angel, preventing accidents, solving problems, making their lives better in small but meaningful ways. But Sarah always died at noon, and at 12:01 time reset, erasing all the good I'd done. Loop 110 through 126 were about acceptance. I'd exhausted every practical solution, tried every angle, every strategy, every desperate gambit my mind could conceive. Sarah Chen was going to die at noon, and nothing I did seemed capable of changing that fundamental fact. So I started paying attention to Thomas Scarlett himself, really watching him, not just his gun hand or his fighting stance, but his eyes and his posture, the way he held his shoulders like a man carrying a weight too heavy for his frame. In loop 115, I noticed he was drunk, not falling down drunk, but steadily, determinedly intoxicated. The kind of drinking a man does when he's trying to drown something that won't stay underwater. In loop 120, I saw him hesitate, just for a split second before drawing his gun, a moment of doubt that flickered across his scarred features. In loop 124, I heard him whisper something under his breath before entering the saloon. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was wrong. Not anger or hatred, but something that sounded almost like prayer. That's when the pieces started falling together. Thomas Scarlett wasn't a killer coming for revenge. He was a broken man looking for an exit. The gunfight wasn't about justice or honor or settling old scores. It was about suicide by gunslinger. And Sarah kept dying because she had too much compassion to let a wounded man suffer alone, even a man who just tried to kill someone she cared about. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. All this time, I'd been fighting the wrong battle. I'd been trying to save Sarah from Scarlett's bullets when I should have been trying to save Scarlett from his own despair. Because as long as Thomas Scarlett wanted to die, time would keep resetting until he got his wish. The curse wasn't about my redemption. It was about his. Loop 127, the moment of truth. When Scarlett calls my name from the street, I don't respond with anger or fear or resignation. I respond with something I haven't felt in months. Hope. Thomas Scarlett, I call back, stepping out of the saloon with my hands visible and empty. I've been expecting you. He pauses, clearly not expecting this reaction. Around us, townspeople scatter toward cover, but I can see them peeking from windows and doorways. Word travels fast in small towns. Everyone knows a showdown when they smell one brewing. Expecting me, Scarlett's voice carries a note of confusion beneath the practiced menace. Your daughter Mary, I say, watching his face carefully. Blonde curl, liked to pick wildflowers. Made you braid crowns for her hair. The change in him is immediate and devastating. His gun hand drops to his side. His face goes ashen. For a moment, The dangerous gunfighter disappears, replaced by a grieving father whose world collapsed with the death of his child. How? He whispers. How could you possibly know that? Because I've lived this day 127 times. Thomas. And it took me until now to understand why. I step closer, keeping my voice gentle but carrying, "You didn't come here to kill me. You came here to make me kill you." His laugh is bitter and broken. "You're crazy, Morrison. Am I then? Draw your gun. Prove me wrong." He doesn't move. Can't move. Because somewhere deep down, he knows I'm right. "She died on Christmas Eve," I continue. "Fever took her while you were away on a cattle drive. You came home to find her buried in the town cemetery under a simple wooden cross. No last words, no goodbye. Just gone." Scarlett's breathing becomes labored. "Stop! You've been riding from town to town ever since, picking fights with anyone fast enough to put you out of your misery. But gunfighters keep surviving when they should kill you clean. So you heard about Jake Morrison, the man who never misses a kill shot, the perfect solution to your problem." I said stop. His hand moves toward his gun, but there's no conviction in the motion. From the saloon doorway, Sarah emerges despite every instinct telling her to stay hidden. She moves slowly, carefully, like approaching a wounded animal. "Sir," she says to Scarlett, "what was her favorite flower?" The question catches him off guard. "What? Your daughter. What was her favorite flower?" Scarlett's facade cracks completely. Wild roses. Pink ones. She said they looked like tiny dancing ladies." Sarah nods understanding. "I lost my mother when I was 12. Cholera. For the longest time, I wanted to follow her." "It's not the same," Scarlett said, but his voice lacks conviction. "Isn't it the hollow feeling where love used to live? The guilt that you're still breathing when someone better than you isn't? The anger at God for taking the wrong person?" I watched this exchange with fascination and growing hope. Sarah has intuited in moments what took me dozens of loops to understand. "My mother loves sunflowers," Sarah continues. "Every morning, I put one on her grave and tell her about my day. What I learned, who I helped, small kindnesses I tried to share, because I realized something important." Scarlett looks up at her with desperate eyes. "The dead don't want us to join them," Sarah says. "They want us to live for them, to be the love they can no longer give to the world." The clock tower chimes 11:50. 10 minutes until the moment that's defined my existence for months. "Mary wouldn't want this," I add quietly. "She wouldn't want her father remembered as the man who threw his life away. She'd want him remembered as the man who saved other little girls from losing their fathers." Scarlett is crying now, silent tears tracking through the dust on his cheeks. I can't stop seeing her face. Every night, every morning. The fever took her so slowly, and I wasn't there. I was moving cattle while my baby girl was calling for her papa. "Then honor her memory," Sarah says. "Help other fathers stay close to their children. Use your pain to prevent others from feeling it." The wisdom in her words strikes deep. Here's a young woman who lost her mother too early, yet chose compassion over bitterness, hope over despair, life over death. "What if I can't?" Scarlett asks. "What if I'm too broken?" "Then you learn," I say, "day by day, choice by choice. The way all broken people learn to be whole again." 5 minutes to noon. Around us, I can sense the town holding its breath. Mrs. Patterson peers from behind her curtains. Old Murphy watches from the saloon doorway. Even the horses seem unnaturally still. "I killed men before," Scarlett says. "In the war, after the war. Some deserved it. Some were just in my way. So did I admit. More than I care to count. But Mary didn't die because of your past sins, Thomas. She died because sometimes the world is cruel and senseless. The question is, what do you do with the time you have left?" 2 minutes to noon. Scarlett looks at his gun, then at Sarah, then at me. If I walk away from this, what then? Where do I go? What do I do?" "You start here," Sarah says simply. "Redemption Town didn't get its name by accident. We're all running from something. The difference is, we decided to stop running and start building. 1 minute to noon, the church bell begins its toll. 11, 12, 13 chimes. Scarlet slowly, deliberately, unbuckles his gun belt. The leather drops to the dusty street with a soft thud that sounds like a prayer being answered. Honey, he starts, then stops. Swallows hard. I don't know how to not be angry anymore. Neither did I say. But I learned that anger's just love with nowhere to go. Find a place for the love, and the anger starts to fade. The clock tower shows 11:59, 59, 58. For the first time in 127 loops, I'm not watching the second hand with dread. I'm watching Thomas Scarlett choose life over death. 45, 44. Will you help me? He asks, looking between Sarah and me. Yes, we both say simultaneously. 30, 29. The three of us stand together in the dusty street, not as enemies preparing for battle, but as fellow travelers who found each other at exactly the right moment. 15, 14. I close my eyes and hold my breath. 10, 9, 8. Please, I think to whatever power has been keeping me trapped in this endless cycle, please let this be enough. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Noon arrives. No white flash. Time moves forward. The pocket watch in my hand reads 12:01 p.m., and I'm crying. Not from sadness, but from relief so profound it feels like drowning in reverse. After months of living the same 30 minutes, I'm finally breathing new air, experiencing unscripted moments, watching time flow forward like a river that remembers how to reach the sea. Sarah's hand finds mine. Jake, are you all right? I think, I say, voice rough with emotion. I'm better than I've been in a very long time. Thomas Scarlett stands awkwardly in the street, looking lost without the weight of his gun belt. What happens now? Now we help you figure that out, Sarah says, extending her hand to him. Starting with lunch. You look like you haven't had a proper meal in weeks. The next hour passes in a blur of impossible normalcy. We sit around a table in the saloon while Murphy Chen serves bowls of beef stew and fresh bread. Scarlett talks haltingly about Mary, her laugh, her drawings, the way she insisted on wearing her Sunday dress every day because it made her feel like a princess. She wanted to be a teacher, he says, he's stirring his stew absently. Said she was going to build a school for children who didn't have one. Poor kids, orphans, anyone who wanted to learn. Redemption could use a school, Sarah muses. We've got 12 children in town now, and the closest education is 2 days' ride. Something shifts in Scarlett's expression. I can read, write. Mary made me practice with her every night. Then maybe, I say carefully, you could teach them what she wanted to learn. The idea takes root slowly. Over the following weeks, Thomas Scarlett transforms from a man seeking death into someone building life. He starts with basic lessons, reading, writing, arithmetic. The children adore him, especially when he tells them stories about a brave little girl named Mary who loved wild roses and dreamed of making the world smarter. I stay too. For the first time in 3 years, I stop running. Murphy gives me steady work maintaining the saloon. Sarah and I court properly, with Sunday walks and chaperone conversations and stolen kisses behind the church. But most importantly, I learned to live with time moving forward again. The pocket watch becomes my reminder, not of being trapped, but of being freed. Every morning, I check the time and smile at the steady progression of moments. Breakfast at 7, work at 8, lunch at noon. Beautiful. Precious noon that leads to 12:01 and 12:02 and all the infinite possibilities beyond. 3 months later, Thomas Scarlett marries widow Eleanor Patterson, whose own children died of influenza 2 winters past. They build the school together, a simple wooden building with Mary Scarlett's name carved above the doorway. 6 months later, Sarah Chen becomes Sarah Morrison in a ceremony officiated by the Reformed preacher, whose laudanum addiction I'd helped him overcome, in Loop 93. 1 year later, I'm teaching my own son to ride while Thomas teaches a classroom full of children that knowledge is the greatest gift they can give to those who come after them. Time, I've learned, isn't about the moments we lose. It's about the moments we choose to save. The pocket watch still keeps perfect time, marking the steady progression of days that no longer repeat. Sometimes I catch Thomas looking at the school's clock tower with that familiar expression of a man learning to live with moving time. We're both healing, day by day, choice by choice, the way all broken people learn to be whole again. You've just heard another story from WestDream Tales. If it moved you, share it, leave a comment, and subscribe, so the spirit of the frontier never fades. Until our next tale, ride safe, dream wild, and keep the West alive.